Okay, we're live right now.
And welcome into PressBox Live. I'm Stan the Fan Charles of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. And with me tonight is not Ross Grimsley. It is Luke Jackson, our managing editor of PressBox and PressBoxOnline.com. Luke, how are you, my friend?
I am terrific, Stan. Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, Ross Grimsley had to go out to California this week, so he was going to be traveling and he had to see some doctors out there. So he's going to be in and out of a couple of appointments as part of his health coverage from the Major League Players Association days. So we just said, Ross, just take it easy. Luke and I got it handled. We're going to talk some baseball, Luke, in just a minute. But first, I got to let folks know a little bit about the folks that bring us this show and our Thursday Zoom as well. That's the Costas Inn, located 4100 North Point Boulevard. The Costas Inn is the place everybody knows in Baltimore to go eat your steamed crabs, your crab cakes, a great steak. They have great crab soup. They got salads, anything you want there. They got libations. They got great desserts. And they got screens all over the restaurant and the bar so you can watch your favorite sports. Costas Inn, though, when the pandemic hit, they stepped up their game for curbside, and that's what really sustained them. And they found out that it was a big part of their business. And a lot of people, Luke, you know this, still aren't very comfortable eating inside restaurants. So the Costas Inn is stepping up, continues to step up their curbside pickup, takeout, whatever you call it. Go to their menu, CostasInn.com, Costas Inn. You check out the menu. You can order and give them a call at 410-477-1975. It's one of my favorite spots to go to. Nick and Pete will treat you right at the Costas Inn. All right. And I'll say some words about them at the back end of the show. Luke, we're going to talk some baseball today, and I thought we'd, just look into a bunch of different topics today.
Absolutely.
All right.
And so let's start with what we have on the site today. And Mr. Stan the Fan Charles posted his updated MLB power rankings for this week. And as you might expect, the New York Yankees are number one, and number two, and this has been, I think, 1-2 for the last few weeks, is the New York Mets. And that is what Stan started out his power rankings with. He had us about 750, 800 words on the Mets, and specifically Buck Showalter. And everyone in Baltimore who's an Orioles fan has had an eye on the Mets this year because of Buck. And what Stan tries to figure out within this piece is what the Mets can do ahead of the trade deadline to give them a chance to win the World Series and give Buck the World Series that he does not have as part of a Hall of Fame resume. So, Stan, what was your conclusion as you were writing this story about what the Mets need? And you said they need three things: what they need and what could put them over the top to get Buck that World Series ring.
Well, first of all, with Buck Showalter, as I say in the piece, when you hire Buck, you can talk all you want beforehand. That's going to be explained to him that he can't meddle. He just manage the team, and Billy Epler will, be the general manager. Sandy Alderson will be the president. Steve Cohn will be the owner, and it'll just work perfectly. Buck can say that at the interview process, but now he's in here 70 games, and what he has, I've got something potting into my earphones. You just hit something, Luke.
I don't think so. I think we're good.
Hold on. Maybe it's me. I apologize. It was me. Boy, I was talking. So anyway, that was great. Great radio. Great Zoom. Anyway, can we start over again now? I'm just kidding. But what Buck's got he's got a team that if Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom are pitching on all cylinders at the beginning of the year, the Mets are probably, let's be honest, the way the Braves got off, the Mets are probably 12, 13 games up. They're right there with the Yankees. They may
Sure.
even be better than the Yankees. But here's the rub. The offense that they've got two really dynamic players in Pete Alonso, who's got about 65 RBIs and 26 homers. And they've got Francisco Lindor, who's not hitting for the average that he used to hit for in Cleveland, but he's got 55 RBIs right around there. So you got two really dynamic players, but they got a lot of guys that are more role players that are playing every day. So here's my theory on this whole thing, that if Buck can't convince Billy Epler and owner Steve Cohn, who, by the way, is the richest owner in baseball by a long mile, if he can't convince them to really make a couple fundamental upgrades, then what they have the problem with, Luke, is what if Scherzer or deGrom or both of them, something happens in the second half of the season, which especially at Scherzer's age, as much of a bulldog as he's been, he's 37 to 38 right now. If he goes down and now deGrom is just sort of piecing it back together, the Atlanta Braves look like they're about ready to really go on a sustained drive. They just brought up another rookie a couple weeks ago. This Marcus Harris the second?
Yeah,
What's his
Michael
name?
Harris the second.
Yeah.
And he's been up for about a month. Yeah.
He's been up for about a month now, but he's just getting his feet really wet.
Mhm.
So he's an outfielder because Duvall is having a terrible year.
Mhm.
And I think Inciardi is not playing well. So they got him playing center and they got Acuna playing some right. Now they can rest Acuna a little bit. I don't think he's fully healthy from that.
And they do have the DH to
They have the DH
in,
position, But the issue is, getting back to the Mets to me don't really, if something were to happen to Scherzer or deGrom, or in that case, Bassett, and they lose one or two of their starting pitchers, their offense to me isn't strong enough to even hold off Atlanta to win the division. So I think Showalter is going to go in, whether it's with Steve Cohn alone or with Billy Epler, and he's going to say, look, guys, you brought me in. We got a hell of a chance here. Do you just want to beat the Atlanta Braves, or do you want to be able to beat the Yankees? Right. And he can talk Steve Cohn. If he can talk Steve Cohn into buying in that we can win, Steve, we can take the Yankees off the back page of the New York Post. We can be on the back page of the New York Post. They will get him one more bat, whether that's Buck Showalter's old player, Trey Mancini, would be a nice fit in New York as a DH right fielder. Josh Bell would be from the Nationals, would be a great DH for the New York Mets. And there's 5 or 7 other guys on teams that aren't, real contenders. So I think the Mets, they also need to shore up. I know Buck would like to get an improvement in getting a better left-handed relief pitcher than they have right now. They've got Wandy Peralta and Chasen Shreve. They're just not, they don't strike me. And Adam Ottavino, while he's a bulldog for Buck, and Buck knows he can always hand him the ball, he seems to give up one too many home runs in almost every appearance. Yesterday against the Marlins, he gave up a big home run. So my basic premise of my piece was that Buck Showalter, when you hire him, you can say all you want about it. He'll just manage the team. He's going to try and jockey this team and get it in a position to really be able to go toe-to-toe with the Yankees and easily dispense with the Atlanta Braves.
I 100% agree with you about what the Mets need. They definitely, I feel like they could definitely use another bat, as you mentioned. And I think Josh Bell, being a switch hitter, being a guy who can play first, you can DH him some.
Yep.
I think that he would be a perfect complement to Pete Alonso, who, by the way, having a monster season.
Monster year.
He's not quite having a Paul Goldschmidt type of season, but it's close. It's pretty close. And he really has turned into the New York Mets Paul Goldschmidt. And I definitely could see them going out and at the deadline and getting some improvements for their bullpen, right?
And he might push it. He might push it. Why wait till the deadline?
Right.
Let's do it now, like in early July.
And that's one thing, though. I will say that bullpen improvements can be a little pricier at the deadline than they normally would be.
Yep.
Because every contender, think of like the best, let's keep it local here. Say Jorge Lopez is available. I don't know if he's going to be available, but say Jorge Lopez is available. Every single contender could use Jorge Lopez in some capacity in their bullpen. Every single contender. Whereas if you have a Trey Mancini available, not every single contender could use a Trey Mancini because he's sort of positioned. He's kind of a first base only type, but they'll play him in right field. Not everybody needs that. But with relievers, the prices, as we saw with Andrew Miller, got pretty pricey because a lot of teams could use Andrew Miller. The Red Sox were able to play the Tigers and Orioles off one another in 14, got a nice piece out of it. So that's one thing that can get a little bit pricey, but there will definitely be relievers available because pretty much every team has at least one reliever. Even the teams that aren't good have at least like one reliever that could be useful for a contender.
I mean, suppose they went to the Tigers and somehow worked out a deal for Soto,
right?
You know, to be kind of that second closer behind Diaz, but maybe also use him a little bit like an Andrew Miller. You know,
and imagine that left-right combination at the end of the game. That would be dominant. So, so yes, I could definitely see that. And to your point about, what if DeGrom gets hurt again? What if Scherzer gets hurt again? The starting pitching market, at least at this point, isn't great. And that doesn't mean that other starters won't emerge. It doesn't mean that surprises won't occur. But the starting pitching market at this point isn't great. And for the Mets, I could really see them getting a middle of the order bat. And again, like you said, improving that bullpen. But one prospect, actually a couple prospects, I don't see them moving in any deal. Francisco Alvarez, the big name catcher, who will eventually take over in Queens at that position. And another one is Brett Beatty, the big third baseman. I don't know if either of those guys will move at the deadline, particularly Alvarez, but I do think they have some ammo in order to get what they need.
So, Luke, the Boston Red Sox have been red hot, just like in the National League, the Atlanta Braves and Boston. If you look at my baseball power rankings, 2-3 weeks ago, they were with the White Sox at 13, 14, 15. And Boston was almost out of the top 20 almost a month ago. They have really put together a real charge right now. What do you think has been fueling that charge?
Well, I think Brandon Hyde has mentioned it a few times recently. They've got one of the best middle of the orders of any team in baseball. And for me, Rafael Devers is like one of the 5 or 6 best players in baseball because he does it on both sides of the ball. And for me, he's one of the 5 best pure left-handed hitters in the game. Right up there with Bryce Harper and guys like that. He's got
the most intense focus. That thing where he's talking to himself in between every pitch. He's just an obsessive hitter in that.
And you brought up this comparison early in the season. There's a little Tony Gwynn there in how he approaches every at bat and how he can hit balls hard from line to line.
Yep.
Of course. He's got terrific power as well. And he's one of the best players in baseball. He is not a free agent after this year. He is a free agent after next year. And I think the Red Sox at this point might not have any choice but to pay him what he wants and to give him the kind of huge dollars because he's in his 20s. He's not going to be a free agent who's approaching his 30s, like is the case with Xander Bogaerts. But Xander Bogaerts, he's been terrific as well. And JD Martinez. It's for me, those 3 guys in the middle of their order are so
You're
potent.
talking about Devers, Martinez, and Bogarts.
Right. I'm just a really, really potent middle of the order. And they've got some other guys step up as well. But for me, that's really where it starts and ends with the Red Sox. And as you mentioned in your power rankings, they've really figured out the back end of their bullpen, haven't they?
Yeah, they did. They did that on the fly. They brought up this guy that originally was with the Detroit Tigers organization, John Schreiber,
Mhm.
and he has become a perfect setup man. And Cora has been, because Tanner Hoke, who's now the closer, isn't really used to closer duty. He's being very careful not to overuse him. So he'll put Matt Strom in to get 2 outs, and then bring in. Well, you got to have that rule where you got to get 3 batters. That's still in effect, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So, but he'll bring Schreiber or Strom in to get the last out if he can get the matchup he wants. But Tanner Hoke, a converted starter, I know that they were hopeful that he could be a big time starter for them. It didn't appear to be in the cards this year. So they've, like they did 10, 12, 14 years ago with Jonathan Papelbon, they just suddenly said, hey, wait a minute, we got a guy that throws hard and get guys out, in short order, in short stints. And they put Houck there in the bullpen. Bullpen seems to be solved right now.
Right. And you know what? They really haven't gotten a ton out of their big free agent acquisition, Trevor Story, right? He has not produced like he did in Colorado. So I don't know if in the second half of the season he sort of comes back to his career norms. If that happens, then that lengthens out their line.
You know what's interesting about Story, Luke, that he's still got 45 RBIs.
Yep.
It's not like he's got 27 RBIs. He's still got the RBIs. He's stealing bases. And I'll tell you what he does. He gives them a great luxury that at the end of this year, when they, like you said, they got to make a decision who they're going to keep. Well, Xander Bogaerts is a free agent, and Xander Bogaerts is going to want Correa type dollars.
He's going to want top shortstop money.
Top shortstop dollars. They have a shortstop now that they got for pennies on the dollar in Story. They paid him 140 or 150 rather than 290 or 300 million. So he's great insurance for next year onward. But they've really got an interesting ball club. If a couple of the other bats wake up, they really are a tough team right now.
Yep.
And they've got an interesting starting pitcher too. They've added to the mix. They picked him up in a trade. I believe he was originally a New York Met prospect who went to Toronto, I think, in a deal, and now he ended up with Boston. Josh Winkowski. He's made 3 really good starts in a row right now, gotten a couple wins, and he's doing a great job. And the wily veteran, Rich Hill, who I said I wanted the Orioles to sign, he's having a very nice season. Keeps you in every game he pitches.
Except for the one he had against the Orioles about weeks ago.
Well,
I guess that was his worst start of the year. Good was for Birds fans, but he really didn't look good in that game. But every other start, he's been very good. But their best starter has been Nick Pivetta, who's really had terrific. He originally, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, originally came up with the Phillies, and he's having a really, really nice year for them. And he's been their best. He's given them 88 innings already so far this year. 3.25 ERA. He's been terrific.
Is Pivetta the one that, in fact, I think was traded? Maybe I got the wrong guy, but I'm pretty sure he actually came up with the Nationals, and that's who the Nationals traded for Papelbon.
I think you're right. You're absolutely right.
Career, and he's become an excellent, excellent starting pitcher. No question about it. Luke, I don't know if you watched the game yesterday, but there's a story developing in the south side of Chicago. The fans there, and it's sort of a shame that his career is ending this way.
Right.
When I say ending, who knows? He's liable to go off on 18 straight wins for the White Sox. But Tony La Russa yesterday was again mocked by cheers, derisive cheers of fire Tony, fire Tony.
Right.
It's not a good look. I don't think he's doing a good job there at all. I think they've had tons of injuries,
Yep.
but to me, he's not anywhere near the baseball genius he was in his heyday.
Well, you are almost certainly right about that. The good news for the White Sox is that they are in the AL Central. They're only 5.5 games back.
Yep.
So the season's not dead yet. It probably would be dead in the American League East, but they're in the right division. And you're absolutely right about the injuries. They haven't gotten anything out of Eloy Jimenez because of injuries, if I'm not mistaken.
Makata's been hurt.
Makata's been hurt a couple times, right?
Now they've got Danny Mendick is out for the season. Grandal's on the IL. Yep. Liam Hendricks is on the IL.
And that Grandal,
Lance Lynn was out for the first 2.5 months.
Yeah. Right. The Grandal injury is a really big one because they have nothing in terms of catching depth behind him in the high minors or anything. Like they had nothing behind him. Now, Tim Anderson's still having a really good year. Jose Abreu, the power's down a little bit, but he, the ninth inning last.
Anderson was out for. Anderson
was
out for 25 days. Yeah,
absolutely. Andrew Vaughn has been really good for me. He's been their best hitter. But that's, in terms of, and Luis Robert's been okay. But in terms of positive stories on the offensive side, that's pretty much it. It's really Anderson and Vaughn. They can't hit. That's their biggest issue, is that they just can't hit. And like on the pitching side, if you saw the pitching matchups going into that Orioles series, they had 4 really solid arms set to go for them in that series, and they were very close to being swept in that series because they just couldn't hit. On the positive side, Dylan Cease, that was some of the best stuff as you're going to.
That was the best performance I saw in an Oriole game all season long.
He was up to 99. He had a double plus slider. He had a double plus curveball. He was tremendous. That was some of the best stuff that you're going to see. And yet, because of the injuries on the back end of their bullpen with Hendricks out, the Orioles nearly stole that game. So
a real quick story from fantasy baseball. It involves me, of course.
Sure.
I picked up Jake Berger about four weeks ago for $1 in my free agents, and he goes on a tear, and he's playing because Moncada's on the IL.
Right.
Moncada's hitting like 140 or something like that.
Yeah, he wasn't any good when he was healthy.
So now Moncada's back. They're still playing Berger over Moncada. Well, Berger gets hit on his hand by one of my pitchers.
Right.
Andrew Chapin hits him on the hand. He gets out for 3 or 4 days. They put Moncada back in. Moncada plays 3 days. The third day, he went, God bless you. Gesundheit. The third day, Moncada, I think, went 5 for 6, hit a home run, and got hurt again. And now he's out again. And Berger hasn't been nearly the player he was. A lot of times when you get these hand injuries, even though the player, you get him back and you go, oh, quick, great, we've dodged a bullet. We only missed 3 games. It's lingering the whole time, and they never hit the way they did. Berger's been awful.
Right. And those kind of hand injuries could really sap power.
Yep.
In particular. And so, but back to your original point about Tony, he's obviously getting up there in age. And I haven't paid close enough attention to the White Sox.
He was up there in age when they hired him.
Oh, right. I haven't paid close enough attention, but there definitely seems to be, and you mentioned this over the weekend, a bad vibe with that team.
Yeah.
And part of it is the injuries, but last year that was like a really fun, energetic team. That tends to happen when you win, right?
Yep.
And when you're 5 games below 500 and you enter the season with World Series expectations, the vibe isn't great.
Yeah.
I don't know how much of that is on Tony. I don't know. I know that you personally have seen some questionable managerial tactics from Tony throughout the past couple of years. And I don't know if at this point, he's behind the times. I don't know. I know that
this is a guy at one time who invented the modern bullpen.
He revolutionized the modern
bullpen. And now I watch the way he uses, and again, it has to do with my team. The way he uses Liam Hendricks, it's just awful. He'll bring Liam. He won't pitch him like the day before because they got like a big lead. He won't put him in for one inning to keep him fresh. And then the next day, he'll throw him like 48 pitches. You know,
I did notice. Yeah, I did notice last year that with Hendricks, I think the Orioles and White Sox played a doubleheader, and he used Hendricks in both ends of the doubleheader.
Right.
And then he used Hendricks for a day game the next day. So he ended up using Hendricks three times in
2 days. Yeah.
And he used him very heavily last year, 4 times in 5 days, that sort of thing, 3 straight days a lot. And this year he's hurt.
This is a guy, by the way, that when he turned Eckersley into the best closer in all of baseball, he never used Eckersley in the 8th inning. Now maybe he had better setup people, but it doesn't matter what you have. You can't hurt the guy that's feeding you. And the guy that's feeding the White Sox is Hendricks, and he's now out with an injury. I'm keeping my fingers crossed he's back soon. But anyway, before we get out of here, Luke, I thought another topic you and I could kick around for a bit, because you got the news that the Orioles made a couple promotions again out of the minor leagues, from Aberdeen up to Bowie. Why don't you tell our viewers who's moving up to Bowie?
Colton Cowser, last year's first round pick, has moved up to Bowie. He's an outfielder, left-handed hitter. Kobe Mayo, who was an overslot pick in the 4th round in the 2020 draft. He's also moving up to Bowie. He's a third baseman. And Connor Norby, a second baseman, their second pick in last year's draft. He is also moving up to Bowie. So those 3 guys have formed the core of a really, really productive Aberdeen offense. That Aberdeen team has been very, very good this year. And Bowie, to be honest with you, could have used some reinforcements. And they
lost Gunnar Henderson.
They lost Gunnar Henderson. They lost Jordan Westberg. Jordan Westberg. Yeah, they really needed an infusion of talent, and they got it today. And so that'll be interesting to keep track of how they do at Bowie. They all did pretty well at Aberdeen. None of them had stat lines that screamed promote me. But I think this is a good time to give them a new challenge and see where they are in their development, and give them enough time in AA that if they initially struggle, they've got enough time to adjust and bounce back later on in the season. This is really like the midway point of the minor league season.
One of the other players you and I were talking before we went on the air that we expect now will get a promotion in the short term, in 2 to 3 weeks, from Delmarva up to Aberdeen, is number 1 pick out of that 2020 draft, Heston Kjerstad.
Yeah, absolutely. So he's at Delmarva right now, and I have stats up right here. In 45 at bats at Delmarva, he's been there for a couple weeks. He is hitting .422. I hear that's good. 481 on base and 600 slug. He's got 5 doubles.
So his OPS is well over 1,000. It's like 1,100.
Yes, almost 1,100.
Wow,
absolutely. So it's great to see him back. He's been through a lot. This is really the first time that he's played competitive ball since his junior year was cut short at Arkansas because of the pandemic. He's gone through more than anybody, pretty much anybody could have imagined. A draft pick going through it. He's had myocarditis, he's had hamstring issues, but he's back on the field. Unfortunately, he's 23 years old before he gets his professional career going. But as we were saying before we went on the air, if he's as talented as the Orioles think he is, and if he's as talented as the production that he showed at Arkansas, hopefully this is nothing more than a bump in the road, and he can get really going. And hopefully it's smooth sailing from here in terms of health, because he certainly deserves a clean bill of health from here on out.
And I think it needs to be said again to those people that were critical of Mike Elias at the time for not taking the obvious number 1 pick, Austin Martin, who is now on his 2nd team, and doesn't really appear like he's knocking the door down to be ready to play in the major leagues.
The knocks on Martin were the position, whether he was drafted as a shortstop. He's not a shortstop. So he might be a second baseman. He might be a center fielder. He might be a left fielder because of the arm strength. And the other knock was the lack of power. And he really hasn't shown much power. And I think that was one of the reasons why the Blue Jays were willing to give him up in the Jose Barrios deal last summer. I think they were more than willing to do that because a lot of the concerns that scouts and media types had about him at the time of the draft really bore out last year in the Blue Jays system. And I will say this, that fans are also critical of the underslot strategy. Oh, you just take the best player and pay him, close to slot, whatever. I think this shows one of the reasons why you do go underslot and get more talent for more bang for your buck, so to speak, because something like myocarditis could happen to anybody.
Right.
And so, and in getting 3 players for that price of that number 2 slot value, it kind of protects you against the unforeseen.
So they got Kobe Mayo.
Yeah.
They paid over slot, and they also got a pitcher late in that draft who now has had Tommy John surgery a year ago. Cody Baumler, right?
Carter Baumler, yeah.
Carter Baumler.
Yeah, he's at Delmarva as well. And so they were basically able to get 3 players for that number 2 slot value.
How does that scenario, that philosophy look this year for the Orioles with the number 1 pick in the draft coming up on this? I think is it the day before the All-Star game or the day of the All-Star game?
It is 2 days before the All-Star game. It is on July 17th. That's a Sunday night. And then the All-Star game will be the 19th.
The 19th, right. So what about that? You think there's a good chance they could pass on Drew Jones and Jackson Holiday to go for maybe somebody like this guy, Cam Collier?
I think there's a chance of that. I think there's absolutely a chance of that. And the one thing we don't know is, what the Orioles, obviously we don't know what the Orioles really think about these guys. They think Mike Elias has said that number 1, they won't take a pitcher at 1.
Right.
And the other thing he said is that they're really considering like 5 or 6 guys. And so I would assume that group is some form of maybe Drew Jones, Jackson Holiday, Elijah Green, Brooks Lee's a shortstop at Cal Poly, Cam Collier out of the JUCO ranks. He's a
third baseman, right?
The third baseman, 17 years old. I would imagine that the group looks something similar. Tamar Johnson, he's an infielder out of the Atlanta area high school kid. And so the idea would be that if you think that group is roughly the same, that maybe you have someone at 1, but he's not head and shoulders above everyone else, and you think talent-wise they're roughly the same, that you can float a price to those players, and whoever says that they'll sign for the lowest amount, that you take that player and you use that savings to get more talent later in the draft. And here's the thing. Each team has a pool money, like fixed pool money, that they have X amount of dollars to pay for their picks in the first 10 rounds. And the Orioles, I think, have like 17 million. They have the most in the league.
Right.
Because
they're the number 1 picking team.
Right. They're number 1 picking team. They've got a couple comp picks in there, one of which came from Miami for the Tanner Scott deal, Cole Sulser. So they got a lot of money. But you can spend that money within those first 10 rounds however you please. So those aren't fixed amounts for each pick. But the total pool money is fixed. And so what they did in 2020 was that they took Heston Kjerstad early, who took a little bit of a discount, and they used that savings to get Kobe Mayo, who had a strong college commitment, a big price tag, strong college commitment to Florida, and they got a right-hander from Iowa, Carter Baumler, talented right-hander, big commitment to TCU. And so you have to buy them out of those commitments.
Yep.
And so could they do something similar this year and say, okay, we've got 5 or 6 guys that we really like. We like them about the same. They're different positions, but they're sort of the same talent level. Whoever takes
and four of those guys allow us to do this over a slot deal.
Right. And so do we do that? And I think the answer could absolutely be yes. But here's the thing. Like I said before, we don't know if the Orioles think that 1 of the or 2 of these guys is head and shoulders above the rest, because they thought, again, they've done both. In 2019, they thought Adley Rutschman was the clear top prospect.
Right.
They took him. Okay. And now part of that was also that in 2019, there were really 3 guys who were head and shoulders above the rest.
Bobby Witt Jr.
and
Adley and Andrew Vaughn.
Yeah. And so, in other words, the Orioles couldn't really say, tell Andrew Vaughn, we'll take you at 1, but you got to take a big discount. What Andrew Vaughn's going to tell him, well, I'm going to go 3 anyway. So
Right.
I'm not going to lose much money. So it doesn't really make any sense to me. I'll just go 3 and I'll take the slot money. And so, but with a broader range of possibilities here in this draft with as many as 6 guys, maybe you could do the under slot thing.
Another thing that points to doing the under slot thing, or is the fact that they got that number 2 round pick from the Marlins,
Right.
which means that they will have 3 picks, I think, out of the first like 70 picks,
Something like
that.
that.
So I think there's a good chance they could use that this year, and you see them take a Collier, who might take the extra, take a little bit less money
Mhm.
that allows them to load up on that second pick
Right.
that they got from the Marlins.
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely.
Hey, Luke, it's a pleasure doing this. We'll do it some more. You and I will be on about the week leading up to the draft. Draft takes place Sunday, the 17th of July. We'll get on sometime the week before and discuss this in more detail. All right.
Absolutely.
All right. That does it for us tonight. Got to tell you about the Costas Inn. That's right, the Costas Inn, 4100 North Point Boulevard. They are the place for Oriole fans, Raven fans, whatever sport it is. If you like to go to your restaurant or local bar and watch games and eat your crab soup, steak, chicken, salads, whatever it is, Costas Inn's there for you with multiple TVs all over the facility. But if you still are uncomfortable going into a restaurant, the place to go is the Costas Inn, because they now do curbside better than anyone in town. Go to their website, costasinn.com. Take a look at the menu. Give them a call. You can order over the phone and pay for it over the phone as well with your credit card. 410-477-1975, the Costas Inn. Gary Stein and I are back on this Thursday, and our guest will be D.P. Smith III. He's written a book about Johnny Unitas. It's called The Golden Arm Gentleman. We'll find out what his angle is on Thursday at 7 o'clock. Luke, it's been a pleasure.